And to take over the next item of today's agenda, I kindly welcome Mr. Dinesh Priyankara, who is the Senior Architect Specialist, Virtusa, and who is having 14 years experience in various aspects of database technologies, including business intelligence. He has done many local and foreign business intelligence implementations and has worked as subject matter expert on various database and business intelligence related projects. Currently, he is stationed as a senior architect specialist at Virtusa. He teaches, consults, and runs training programs. Please welcome Mr. Dinesh Priyankara.
Good morning to you all. Still it's 11:55. Right. It was really a good session. I was listening to Krishna's sessions. I haven't done much things related to open source, but I learned a lot of things from Krishna's session. So thank you very much, Krishna. When it comes to this presentation, I'm not going to talk about open source, but definitely I'll be talking about general concepts related to business intelligence and how this big data part comes into this business intelligence solutions. Okay, that's what I have planned. Before starting anything, I'll quickly go through this slide. Of course, the introduction has been already done. So this is all about me. Been working with database management system for last 10-15 years. And most of the time it is BI solutions. And I'm one of the SQL Server MVP. MVP stands for Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. Microsoft has been awarding me for 10 years, right? So this is all about me. I have added my email address there. I'm not too sure why I haven't added my mobile number. Usually I add. But if you have any question related to this presentation, or if you want to discuss something offline, you can simply send me an email. Okay? I'll be sharing this presentation in a PDF format. So you can have this copy, and then you can contact me anytime if you want to discuss anything related to BI and BI plus big data. Okay? Right, we have about 1 hour, so we'll try to cover as much as possible. This is my agenda. Now, before starting this one, can I understand the audience? I'm sure, I can simply divide the audience into 2 segments: developer side, business user side. Okay, just raise your hands if you are in developer sides, then I can, straight away identify business users. Okay, oh, more than 50%. Right, okay. Okay, if I take that percentage, I can assume that is 70-80%, or let's say 70%. Are you working with Microsoft technologies? Yes, okay. About 50% of it, right. Great. Now, when I go through this presentation, when I discuss about the concepts, I'll be discussing things in general way, right? So I'm not going to talk about the concept related to Microsoft, concept related to Oracle, concept related to open source. But when it comes to demonstration, I'll be using Microsoft technologies. And I'll be showing you how Microsoft has enhanced the feature set related to data platform in terms of handling BI and big data. Okay, right. So definitely we'll be having 5-10 minutes for Q&A. But if you really need to discuss something while this has been done, you can raise your hand and ask the question. I really like to have some questions while I'm doing this, without waiting till the end of the session. Okay, clear? Right. So the agenda, if you go through that document, I think the title is a bit different. Initially, we were planning to have a session saying, how these BI solutions getting impacted based on big data concepts, right? Then we changed the title a bit, and in the document you are going to see the changed one, but I'm using the same title again, but the content is same. Okay, you don't need to worry about. So we'll be discussing all of these things. I'll be talking about what is this BI and how this was started, and what sort of things happening with these BI solutions, what are the things we need to consider, things like that. Okay. The first phase basically about the traditional business intelligence. But when it's come to the second phase, right, we'll talk about the modern BI implementation. And as a part of it, we'll discuss about big data. Okay, that's the plan. And at the last one, it says big data implementation, the Microsoft phase. So I'll show you how you can easily use big data concepts technologies with Microsoft technologies. Okay, right, that's a plan. So we'll start with the first one. So it's all about BI solution. Now, have you worked with BI solutions? Just raise your hands if you have worked with BI solutions, so a couple of hands, right? Okay, that's great. So you know that why we really need BI solutions. If you go through this definition, the first one is how business user sees it, and the second one, how we see it, okay? So it's all about getting some information out from your captured data, right? In very, very simple term, but if you really want to get the exact definition, you can either take this one or you can Bing it, Google it, you will get more and more definitions. But it's all about making sure you have a single repository that represents the entire organization, and anyone, when it comes to business user, it can be from the top management or it can be from the operations side. They should be able to use this repository. That's the target. You might have heard about, when it's come to BI solution, we were talking about the organizational structure, and most of the time, if you go back to about 10 years back, most of the time we were talking about BI. It is only for the top management, right? We are designing a BI solution that because top management wants to make decision easily. That's how we were talking about BI solution, right? But nowadays it is not. If you have a BI solution, you need to make sure your BI solution addresses all the issues, problems coming from all the levels of your organization. Okay, right. So this is the definition. As you see, if I just talk about the developer side, right, it says category of application technologies, gathering, storing, analyzing, and making sure everything is there to help business users to make decision. Okay, right. Let's talk about the history before talking about the modern BI and the big data, right? Then only you can understand why we really need the big data part in your BI solution. Now, you know that before these computers, everything was managed manually with documents and all. So you can imagine, like whenever if you have to maintain your address book using a notepad, whenever you want to make a call, you have to go through all the pages. It is really good if you have an order with your names, but if it is not, you have to go through a couple of pages to find the phone number. So same thing, like think about same concept, or the similar operation has to be done with a very large organization. Right? It's difficult. So people were thinking about it, and they wanted to use these computers to manage all of these things. I'm sure that you know this gentleman, right? Because of him, he's the one who introduced this relational world. I'm sure that everybody has seen a database, even though you sit on the business user side, you know about database. That is what we use for holding data, right? And most of the databases are based on relational patterns. You have tables, you have columns, your tables have been designed based on the entities identified related to your organization. You have rows, columns, and relationship between these tables, right? All because of this gentleman. He introduced this structure, and he introduced normalization theories too, right? Why we are talking about these things? This is how IT started addressing business issues, business problems. Okay, right? Now, if you talk about the first database, or the first commercial database, it was invented, or actually, the name is, it is not, the company is not using this name now. It is called Relational Software. They're the one who actually use Colt's theories for commercial database, right? So they invented, or basically they started selling database management systems based on his concepts, and then later it became Oracle. Okay, so that's how we started using a database management system. This addresses a set of specific issues related to the business. Now, when it's come to the business, most important thing is daily operations. You need to make sure you can run all your operations without waiting. So when they design application, when they design database, right, that is what everybody considered. So his theory completely focused on operations, transactions. So this concept is fully optimized for what? Transactions, right? And later, of course, companies started using this because they can continue their business operations without any delay, right? It speeds up all operations, basically. But they started facing another issue. Even though this structure is really good for holding data, or not exactly holding data, handling transactions, when it comes to getting data out, specifically on decision making, it takes time. If you are talking about 100,000 records, 200,000 records, that's not an issue. But think about a large organization, bank, insurance company, or telco, right? You'll be holding millions of billions of records. So if you want to get something out, for example, telco company, you try to get some, incoming calls, statistically incoming calls. Think about the volume, right? It is possible. With this structure, you can query. You have worked with databases. You know you can write select statement against any table, right? You can write a query and get the data out, but it takes time. If the data structure is complex, if the volume is very high, it is complex. So they wanted to have a different structure for this. That's how this OLAP term introduced to this world, right? So again, the term was introduced by COD, but so many experts supported on this. And then finally, we had another type called OLAP. So the relation structure started calling as OLTP, and this was started as OLAP. Okay, so we have one world for handling transaction, another world for getting data out. Okay, that's for data retrieval. Now, how this business intelligence term came? Now, even before this COD's theories, this term was referred by another person, who is the person's name is Hans Peter. Okay, he actually mentioned this word in one of his articles, but nobody noticed it. But later, it was Gartner Group. Have you heard about Gartner Group? Yes, right. Okay, they are the one who actually decided to use the term called business intelligence with all these different type of application related to decision making. So what are the related application types we had? I'm sure that you have heard about EIS. We don't use these terms now. EIS, DSS. What does DSS stand for? Decision support. Okay, right. So all these terms, they decided to, okay, everybody uses these type of application for, addressing a certain issue, decision making. So why don't we just name all those things as a business intelligence? So that's how we started calling this as business intelligence, right? There are a couple of tools I have mentioned with the year. So that's how we started using BI solutions. So let's see how this works. I have mentioned this as traditional implementation, but even though we consider this as traditional implementation, we still use this. Okay, I still use this, and most of the companies use this technique. There are different ways of implementing BI solution. Kimball's concept, Inman's concept, or you can combine concepts coming from these two gentlemen and implement your BI solution. It is there, but if you just summarize the way we have to implement a BI solution, this is the way. So what we normally do is, in order to make a BI solution, we need to have a centralized repository. That's a target, right? In order to get information related to all your organization operation, we need to have a centralized operation. Like I have worked with a couple of banks. When I go and see their systems, I see a lot of systems. One for core banking system, one for pawn-in, one for handling loans and HR system, like various systems. So if you try to get one of these systems and then implement a BI solution, it's not going to work, because yes, it will cater HR department's requirements, but that's not the target for BI solution. When we design BI solution, we need to make sure we address the entire organization. So you need to get all the data from, if possible, from all the sources, all the systems. Okay? So then we have to go through an operation called ETL. I'm sure that you have heard about this word ETL. Okay? Yes or no? Yes, right? Okay. Have you heard about a term called ELT? This is ETL. Can I call this as ELT? Yes. Have you heard about it? Okay. When we talk about big data, we'll talk about it. Right? Okay. So through the ETL operation, you do all sort of cleansing, removing duplicates, doing aggregation, deduplicating, so many things, right? Applying business logic. You need to make sure you just pass extracted data from your sources into the data warehouse. That's the term we use for our centralized repository, data warehouse. Okay? So we pass everything into the data warehouse after doing all sort of cleansing. And then we used to build something called OLAP data warehouse. Have you heard of, okay, I'm sure that again it's an old term now. Cube, dimension, are you familiar with those terms? Yes, okay. So you have used cubes and dimensions. So this part is actually this part is actually the cube part. Okay, so with the traditional implementation, we have a relational data warehouse based on relational structure. Of course, it is not exactly normalized structure. On top of that, we have the OLAP model, which we called as cubes and dimensions, right? So then we open this environment for business users for doing all the required analysis, either connecting with the data warehouse or connecting with the OLAP or the cubes, right? So this is how we were implementing BI solution. Clear to this? Okay, right. Now, let's go through the modern implementation of BI. Now, once this is implemented, still, we started seeing, okay, let's take an example. Okay, there's a bank called ABC, right? We implemented BI solution of the bank, right? All business users are really happy and they started using it. They can simply get answers for all their questions. Fine, right? But after a couple of months or a couple of years, they start realizing that this is not enough. Okay? Why it is not enough? I'm sure that you have experienced this. Whenever, like if you are a business user, whenever you want to get something, if it is not in the system, you have to talk to IT department again. Right? You talk to the IT department and say, okay, I want to do this type of analysis, and this has to be done today itself. Can you, organize something for me? Then IT department might say, okay, we have data. Let me create a report and give you. Or else IT department might say, okay, we don't have that data captured. We need to write some ETLs. We need to get some, we have to write some codes for getting those information into our data warehouse. It might take 1 or 2 weeks or 1 or 2 months. Okay, so this issue started, these are the issues, business users started seeing after implementing a traditional BI. In order to handle this one, experts were, discussing on all of these issues, and they wanted to make sure business user is empowered, right? Can we, give more and more tools? Can we give some features, functions to business users to do those type of things? ETL part, creating data warehouse containers, creating cubes. If we can give those stuff, if we can give a tool or some sort of facility for handling that part, we are addressing this issue at least up to some extent. Okay, that's how this term was introduced. Have you heard about self-service BI? Okay, so self-service BI is all about empowering business users. So business user does not want to wait till IT department addresses his issue, right? He wants to get some data, from his core banking system, and he wants to get some data from the central bank, but which has not been captured yet. So he should be able to get the data from the data warehouse, and he should be able to, connect with the whatever the web service. Assume that central bank has opened a web service for us. So he should be able to connect with the web service and get the data, combine it, create his own cube, and then continue with the analysis, right? But can we expect the same knowledge we have in terms of the IT technology from business user? It is not possible, right? Business user, they always focus on the business. They know the business better than us. But when it comes to technology, we cannot expect them to write select statement, insert statement, write some code for integrating 2 different systems and do some transformation. We cannot expect. So when it comes to self-service BI, if you are going to implement self-service BI for your BI implementation, you need to make sure you use the right tool. So what is this right tool? Right tool has to support business users to get some data without writing code. This right tool has to support business user to create his models as he wants. Now, I use the term model, not the cube. Why? Because we are not using the term cube now, right? The word cube has been not exactly replaced, but we started calling these things as model. So if I'm the business user, I'll be having a model for analyzing my sales. And I'll be having another model for analyzing revenue or, the exchange rate transactions. If I want, okay, let's assume that I'm using self-service BI. So I have created 2 models for addressing or analyzing data I want. And if I want, I should be able to share these models with my other business users. That is self-service BI. Okay, right. So when it's come to the modern BI implementation, this is what we do. Same thing, you cannot remove data warehousing part completely. It is required. You can never ever ask business user to go and connect with the sources you have, because most of the enterprise level sources, databases of the application, it is not designed for business users. It is designed for handling the business requirement. So if I just ask one of the business users to open your core banking system and get customer information out, it is not possible, because you will be spending hours for finding this entity in your database, and then let's say you identify the table, you open the table. Most of the system, you don't have proper column names. You'll be having column names like column 1, column 2, right? You don't know what to be picked. So this issue is there. Because of that, still we need a data warehouse. So that's our duty. So we have to make sure data warehouse is created based on all the requirements coming from business users, and then you can still continue with the cube implementation, but we don't use the word cube, we'll use multidimensional model, right? And then we open both relational data warehouse and multidimensional data model to business users. So business user can get data as he wants. Now he is not getting ready-made reports. Now most of the BI solutions are based on ready-made reports. That is wrong. You need to have an interface for creating your own reports. But if you go through all the BI implementation, yes, that's fine. But I'm not saying that BI solution should not give this production type of report or formal reports. Still you can create, but that's not the target. Formal reports, production reports can be generated from sources. We don't need a BI solution for generating formal reports. For example, order report, daily sales. We don't need BI solution for that. Okay, right. So what business user is going to do with this implementation is he will be connecting with the data warehouse. He will be connecting with the multidimensional model. Right. We need to make sure all these things are with user-friendly names or the business terms, getting data as he wants, and create his analysis environment. Right? He can just create a report and continue with his analysis, or he can just create a dashboard that contains many things coming from here and there and then continue. Right? Or else he can simply share whatever things he has done. Okay? Now, not only that, he should be able to connect with other sources. That's another key area related to self-service BI. Not just from the data warehouse that has been created, not just from the multidimensional model that has been created. For example, if the organization has a Facebook fan page, what are the comments that have been made? What are, how many likes we have for the, for particular post? Business users should be able to connect with the FB or the Wikipedia or whatever the website you have and get information without writing codes, okay? Again, I'm saying that without writing codes, they should be able to get all of these things and continue their analysis. That is called self-service BI. Most of the database vendors, they support it. Microsoft, Oracle, right? There are, even in open source, I know that there are a couple of tools available for self-service BI. I have used some of the tools, but not only Microsoft. You have Tableau, you have some SAP tools, you have, when it comes to Microsoft, you have Microsoft Excel, Power BI, we'll talk about those things, right? So simply you can empower business users doing this type of implementation, right? Okay, so now we know that this is what we have to do when it's come to BI solution. Now let's see how this big data impacts this. Do we really need big data into our data warehouse, or can we just ignore it, or have we been ignoring it, right? Okay, and when it comes to business user, do they really need this part for making decisions? That's what we are going to talk about, right? Since Krishna covered most of the things related to big data, I'll try to just spend a few seconds on each slides and continue, but if you have any questions, we can discuss, okay? Right, again, if somebody asks the definition related to big data, you will get so many different definitions. One will say, okay, it's all about the volume, like, since it has been named as big data, it's all about volume, right? If you do not have billions of records, you can't consider as big data, but that's not the truth, right? We'll discuss about the properties related to big data, but this is how we generally explain. What you see with your organization data is something like that. Okay? You always see the top part. The hidden part, you never see it unless somebody started, extracting it out. Okay? Right. So if you take, let's say, customer information, right? You try to get customer information from your system. You will get things like his name, address, the transaction he has made, but you will never ever go through his other properties, like whether he has he's married or his educational background. You need to make sure you have captured those things, but assume that things have been captured, but we never consider those things into our business intelligence solution. Or not, okay, forget about the BI solution, but even for general analysis, you don't consider those things. But there's a big value of it, right? So that's why this big data term, started, impacting all of these systems, right? What we say is, whenever you see, that's a 15% of it. 85% hidden, right? Can you see two terms like, unknown data types, mostly unstructured. Why we call this as unstructured? It doesn't mean that it is not in a tabular format. It cannot be read. It doesn't mean like that. Okay, let me go to this slide, right? Now, if you just focus on 3 V's, we have volume, variety, and velocity, right? Sometimes I have seen 4 V's too, right? But generally, whenever we describe big data, these are the 3 things we describe, right? One of the characteristics of big data is the volume. Yes, we are talking about a large data set, 100,000. Okay, you can argue with me saying 100,000 is not large, but I can still consider as 100,000 record set is big data. Why? Considering the other 2 characteristics. Okay, but if you just focus on the volume part, yes, we are talking about million, billions, right? The second one, where we are talking about unstructured or semi-structured. What does it mean? It means that the structure or the data set, how it has been formatted, how it has been structured, is unknown to us. That's why we call it as unstructured. If you try to get some data from towers related to telco, you just get a data set. You might get set of columns, or you might just get a document just like a paragraph, but it has all the values. You might have spaces between these, whatever the values, you might have a comma, semicolon, things like that. So it is not just like a table. Now when it comes to our structured container or database, you have specified, this is my column for the first name, this is my second column that holds last name, things like that. But when it comes to a data set like that, we don't have a proper structure. Think about the comments that have been made for your post, FB post. You cannot find a structure. So this is why we said these type of if you see something like that, the structure is unknown to you, structure is a bit difficult to understand, and it is complex, and it is a bit difficult to handle with existing database management platforms. So if you see something like that, yes, you can call it as big data. The third one is velocity. It's all about how quickly, how frequently you are getting data. Now, if you think about, again, banking operation, insurance, yes, always customer makes transaction, deposit money, withdrawal, transferring money. So many things are happening. We are not just talking about 100 transactions, 1,000 transactions per second. If you take one of the Sri Lanka banks, I'm sure that there will be at least, 100,000, 500,000, 1 million transactions per second, right? So some of the samples have been given since, we discussed these type of, even Krishna discussed these type of samples, so I'm not going to continue with those. But generally, you can understand this, right? Again, Krishna discussed a couple of technology related to big data. I'll touch some of these things that because in order to continue my presentation, I need to mention few things related to these type of projects and the technologies, right? Everybody knows that big data, based on Hadoop, right? And it was, initially, originated from Yahoo and in order to handle their data volume, right? So Hadoop is all about, distributing your issue or the business process into multiple nodes. You can think there's clusters. Inside the clusters, you have multiple nodes. So you just pass, or there's a name node, right? You always communicate with your Hadoop environment with the name node. You pass the instruction to the name node saying, okay, I want to solve this issue. get me the results as soon as possible, right? So that name not distribute the whole thing into whatever the nodes you have and get all those things done, combine and give us the results. So that's how it works. And it is completely based on something called HDFS, Hadoop Distributed File System. And we are not talking about tables, columns, rows here. Okay, right. Now that's Hadoop. Couple of related projects, we have to know about these things. Okay, have you heard about this Hive, Pig, HCatalog, Oozie, Scoop, things like that? Have you worked with these things? I really like to know whether you have worked. Okay, a few hands, right, that's great. Okay, sorry? Yeah, a little bit, okay. So even in my case, I haven't used these because, when it's come to these projects, most of them are open source, right? Now, unfortunately, the projects I have worked are almost all, based on either Microsoft technologies or Oracle technologies. Okay, so I had no chance to do something related to BI and big data using open source. That's very unfortunate, but that's my job. Okay, right. But let me go through these related projects. Hive is something similar to structured query language, SQL. If you know that data is distributed with these nodes, so it's just like a set of files. So you cannot write general SQL statements, but if you really want to use SQL type request, if you want to make that type of request against your Hadoop environment, you can use Hive. Pig is another technology that can be used to work with Hadoop environment. This is like, sometimes, okay, most of the time we use Java for connecting with Hadoop and, getting things done. Now, in certain situations, we have to use Pig. Most of the time, Pig translate all your, implementation into Java again, or something called MapReduce concepts, right? So why we have, why the name Pig has been used, based on the articles I have read, what it says is generally Pig eats anything, right? Okay, whatever you give, whatever it finds, it eats, right? So it means that whether data is structured or semi-structured or unstructured, it can consume, it can handle. Okay, that's why the name has been used as per the articles I have read. Okay, right. Then HCatalog, it is more on integrating all these technology into one. If you have worked with something like Hibernate, okay, you can assume or you can consider HCatalog is something like that, not exactly, but something like that. Oozie is generally for handling workflows, and Scoop is if you want to join two different parties. One party is from relational background or relational type, other party is from Hadoop. If you want to join these two, that's what you have to use. Okay, so that's the technology. Those are the technologies related to big data. Now, again, this was discussed previously. I'll quickly go through a sample one just to understand. If you have not worked with big data, you need to understand how this works. Okay, so I'll quickly go through this example. And again, I have taken this example from one of the presentations in the Microsoft Virtual Academy, right? It is not one of my slides. Okay, I have taken it from Virtual Academy. Now, what it says is, assume that you have a very large text files, right? This is based on, okay, let's say we have, a lot of books, and all these books have been set with text files. Okay, so, multiple paragraphs, very lengthy paragraph, right? And in order to cover one book, you might be having hundreds of text files. Okay, right. Now, assume that not just one book, we are trying to collect the content of books from all over the world. So think about how many files you have. We can consider something like that. Okay, let's say we have a document related to customer. It explains customer, right? Of course, it has first name, last name, and things like that. But when it's come to educational background, it's just a paragraph, right? Okay, and the status, whether that customer is related to what type of company. There can be details like that in that document. So assume that the whole thing has been taken into the computerized system. So we don't have predefined fields for holding those things. So you'll be just having set of words. Okay. Now, if you have set of words with multiple or 100,000 files like that, if you want to do some experiments with these data, again, let me go back to the same example. If you want to find some of the words that have been used in these books, How many times this word has been used? This is common example we always take when we talk about big data. Okay, so if you want to get the word called photo, how many times this word has been used with almost all books. We have everything in our text files. Okay, so if you try to do with general or traditional database management system, it is possible, but it will definitely take some time. Okay, but if you just try to solve this business issue using Hadoop environment, once we pass all this information to a Hadoop environment using MapReduce, when you talk about MapReduce, you have two phases: mapping part, reducing part, or the reducer, right? Mapping, as it says, basically it generates key value pairs based on the code you have written. Like, okay, it is not always something like this. You have to write your codes. Okay, the map part. I'll show you a sample code, right? So what happened is the entire data set is distributed among nodes. Do you know an architecture called MPP? Have you heard about? Oh, I should not ask this question from business users. Developers, engineers, have you heard about an architecture called MPP? Yes, some of you, right. So normally what we do is our servers, general server, whatever the servers we have been using, most of them are based on an architecture called SMP, symmetrical multiprocessing, right? So what happens is when you make a request, yes, parallelism is there, but it is limited. Generally, you will be having multiple cores and resources attached to it. But when it comes to SMP architecture, everything is handled through a single bus. So it cannot distribute everything physically. But when it comes to MPP architecture, you have dedicated nodes. Assume that those are set of machines. You're not going to see a set of machines, just a one track, like if you really want to see the physical picture. But those are set of machines, right? Every node, every machine has a dedicated set of resources. It's not a single bus type of implementation. So that is MPP architecture, massively parallel processing. That is what MPP stands for, right? So MapReduce or the Hadoop is based on that architecture. So it distributes all of these things, and finally you get the results. Then the reducer makes the needful. So as you see, okay, so you have a couple of words. So if I just go through the word called sit, you have one here, and it's here, right? So this part will be done or processed by one node. This part will be processed by one node. Likewise, you'll be having multiple nodes based on the Hadoop environment you have configured. And finally, your code, the reducer code, will combine all of these things. You have to write code. So this is an example. This is Java code, right? The first part is the map. Second part is reduce. Like you don't need to go through each and every word I have mentioned with this slide, but just to understand there will be two different methods. You'll be having multiple methods to handling your complex operation, but generally this is what's happening inside the Hadoop when it comes to MapReduce part. Okay, right. So that's what we talk about. That's what we generally discuss when we talk about big data. Now let's go back to the BI again. Now, why we have to consider big data when it comes to business intelligence, right? We have implemented solution related to BI, and now why we have to consider. Everybody is talking about big data. Whenever I go to a company and talk with them something related to BI implementation, I definitely get a question from one of the business users saying, "Are you going to handle big data?" Right? But before that, you need to understand whether you have a requirement for it. Okay, it doesn't mean that if you're going to implement a BI solution, you have to have big data. No, it's wrong, right? If you have a requirement, only you need to take big data part, right? In a way, implementing big data is a bit difficult if you compare with the other solution. The reason is, if you think about the technology, it's not difficult in terms of the technology. But when it comes to skill set, you can't find much skill set related to some of the languages. Now, if you think about the data world, people really like to work with R, Python, right? But I'm sure that even if I ask how many you have coded with Python R, it will be very low, right? We cannot find the skill set. So you need to decide what to be used and what technology, what tool set have to be used when it comes to BI plus big data. So that is also an issue. So a couple of reasons have been given here. We are always getting more and more data, right? Sometimes company has data, but we have not used. I'll show you that part, right? So one reason is data volume, right? We are continuously getting data. And of course, we can handle, even if we have used SMP architecture, if I suddenly, let's say, okay, we were handling about 1 tera size data warehouse. Now suddenly it became 5 or 10 tera, right? Now, how do you handle it? You just add something to your server, right? You either scale up or scale out. When it comes to scale up, you will be adding, resources into your box. But again, it is based on the operating system you have set. It is based on the, what do you call, all the boards in the box, and, so many limitations. You cannot continuously scale up to handle all the issues, right? Or else you can go for scale out. You are going to distribute with multiple machines. Again, based on the, operating system, based on the way it has been implemented, one day you will be hit. But if you go for Hadoop environment, if you know that, you will be hit by, this issue, then you have to go for Hadoop environment. That's why we say that, okay, it is time for big data, or it is time to handle big data inside your BI solution, right? So that's scale out. So, the same concept is, Hadoop is same concept. So that's the first one. The second one, it says 4.5 number of devices connected by parallel, right? Even now, I'm using one phone and laptop, right? So generally, if you think about a person, specifically IT guy, he will be using a phone, iPad, and then the laptop, possibly desktop at home, right? So many devices. So, think about the data generated through all these devices. That is also one concern. And social networks, initially, we didn't want to use social networks. Now, we have to, because your company might be organizing an event, and, without maintaining a site specifically for event, why don't we just use FB for, hosting that event, right? So likewise, so many things are there. And real-time BI requirement. Now, when we implement BI solution, it is very rare to see real-time BI, real-time business intelligence requirement. That because in a way it is a bit difficult to handle, right? If it is very large size of BI solution, but semi or sometimes we call as near real time, you can have near real time with your BI solution. But if somebody wants real time BI, you need to have this type of environment. Okay, right. I have added a couple of other things. Let me continue. Let me talk about previously discarded data, right? So this says business user or the management, they started seeing that yes, we have not captured this data, but the entire organization runs on this data, right? So it has not been captured before. Now company sees the value of it. We need to get those things. Okay, that is also another reason for deciding whether you need big data with your BI solution or not. Okay. Now if you think about this diagram, this shows the same thing, right? We extract data from your sources and put it to the data warehouse, and then we, things like log. For example, if you think about the telco operation, we extract data related to incoming calls, outgoing calls, text messages, the data usage, things like that. But we never ever we capture, but we never ever try to get data related to tower switches, right? It generates billions of records with those type of what you call components. But even though we can capture, we do not capture. But if somebody says, okay, why don't we just capture information coming from the tower and then start analyzing it, right? Then you need to have some different implementation, that because it is the volume is very high, and other thing is it is very complex. Okay. Now this is the way we have been doing. Can you see that unnecessary or previously it has been marked as unnecessary, right? Because of that, things have been sent to the garbage. With this diagram, you can see that the whole thing has been replaced, right? Now if I go back to this basically explain, okay, we try to get some of the information from it and pass it to the data warehouse, and most of the thing, like we can assume that 80 to 90% will be sent to this place. But with this, we try to process the whole thing using Hadoop implementation, and then we pick the best or pick whatever the things we want and pass to the data warehouse. Okay, this is what you have to do, right? Now, again, if it is not required, you don't need to consider about this. You need to think about those reasons, factors we discussed with the previous slide. Based on it, you will decide whether you need to have big data with your BI solution, right? And let me continue with my previous diagram. I have added a couple of other things. Now, if I explain the additional parts, this is all about requirement gathering, forget about it. Now, ETL part, we can use Hadoop technologies for doing some transformation before loading the data warehouse. Okay? Most of the time, if you are saying that you are going to use big data with your BI solution, or even with the other different type of solution, this is how you are going to use it. Okay, so you'll be talking with, you'll be communicating with Hadoop environment. Hadoop environment might be in your organization on-prem, or it might be in cloud environment. It doesn't matter, but you'll be using the benefits coming from this in order to process your big data. Okay, again, big data is not exactly 1 million records. You might be having 100,000 records with very complex unstructured manner. Okay, right. I have added another icon for this. Okay, elephant, you know that Hadoop, elephant represents Hadoop, right? But what's this icon? Anyone knows? This one, what it represents? Okay, data mining, machine learning, other section you need to add when it's come to BI solution, right? Now, it is also, you have many open source components, many vendor specific components for handling machine learning part, right? Okay, so your BI solution will use these two technologies and transfer data to the data warehouse, and then same thing. But you can see now business use also accessing big data, right? It doesn't mean that business use is going to write produce functions. Business use is going to use Hive or Pig technologies for communicating with Hadoop environment. No, you need to have that. That's a self-service part. Okay. So if you have implemented self-service and then later you decided to have big data with your BI solution, you need to make sure you upgrade your self-service environment. So business users should be able to get some data from your Hadoop environment too, without writing codes. Okay, and finally you will be accessing all of these things, using whatever the the machine, like laptop or desktop, mobile device, right? So this is the real way of implementing BI solution. But in terms of the cost, is really high, that because you are trying to use almost all technologies related to BI and big data and machine learning. But if you have the requirement, this is what you have to do. Okay, right. Now let's see how Microsoft sees this, how Microsoft support us for implementing all of these things using Microsoft technologies, right? Microsoft main data platform is called as SQL Server. I'm sure that some of you have used Microsoft SQL Server. Some of you have used different database management system like Oracle, MySQL, or open source type of databases. Even I can't remember all those names, but there are so many database management systems, right? Now, when it comes to Microsoft, SQL Server has a couple of editions like BI edition, Standard edition, Enterprise edition. If you think about the Enterprise edition, most of the vendors, Oracle, IBM, Microsoft, they always offer this Enterprise edition, which is the most expensive one. Hadoop, FS, I can't remember all these things, LS, if I put slash, I think I get the folder list. Yes, okay, so that's the environment that I've been created for you. You have sorry, I'm just typing based on my memory. So I think there's a folder called example. Okay, so if I say Hadoop FS ls slash example, no, I can't see letters because okay. So basically you will be using Linux commands for accessing your Hadoop environment. Okay, right. So that's your environment. Let me quickly go through next set of slides. I have only few number of slides. Right. So how do you access HD Insight once it is created using Microsoft technologies? You can, just like that, you can access it through the remote connection or remote desktop. Or else you can use PowerShell, and PowerShell can be used for adding MapReduce functions, executing them. You can create pig statements. You can execute Hive statements. So Hive technology allows you to create set of tables, either temporarily, or we call them as internal and external. Temporarily, or if you want to keep all those things inside the Hadoop environment, you can create it as permanent table. Those are not exactly tables. You just see it as a table, but normally what we do is, when we want to hold some data, we create the schema and load data, right? But with this, we have the load, and on top of it, we put a schema saying we want to read like this. Okay, that's Hive. You need to understand difference between relational world and Hadoop environment. Okay, so you initially design the table structure, and these are my columns and types and all. Then you started filling that table. That's your relational structure. But if you think about this environment in Hive, you have a text file. Let's say you have a text file, right? And you then describe saying, I want to read this data in this pattern. So that's your table structure. You put the schema on top of your data. Okay, so that is also supported with PowerShell. Or else you can use Microsoft Excel and Power BI for accessing Hadoop environment and get data. And the scoop functionality is for combining relational data and other things. I'll show you this one, and since I don't have much time, I'll continue with a couple of more slides, and then I'll try to show you a demo. Right, so how do you consume all of these things using Microsoft technologies, specifically on self-service, right? So there's I'm sure that everybody has used Microsoft Excel, okay, or you have used spreadsheets, so definitely most of the time it is going to be an Excel, right? It comes with Microsoft Office, and it has been enhanced to handle the BI requirements, okay? So if you go for Office 365 or Power BI, you get more and more functionalities into Excel. And it allows you to, if you are a business user, it allows business user to create business users' own models. That's a key advantage with this new implementation. Remember, we were talking about cubes, right? Now, if I'm handling the IT department, I can simply say, okay, you are talking about a model required for your department. Why don't you just try and create your model, right? We can create, but if you really want, you try it, right? So business user can simply use Excel for creating the model, and then once a model is created, it can be published if business user wants. And once it is published, there's a separate section or separate environment in the Azure called Power BI. So you can simply subscribe for Power BI and then create a model and publish to the Power BI. So your model is published. Assume that it's a dashboard, and dashboard contains millions of records, right? It is an Excel. Do not worry about it. Excel knows how to compress data using a technology called column store, and it knows how to handle all of these things using memory technology, in-memory technologies, right? Even though you have loaded 5-6 million records into Excel, it works fine even with a laptop like this. Okay, you don't need to worry about it at all. So let's say I'm the business user. I created a model connecting with the data warehouse that have been given by IT department, and I have a dashboard, right? A nice, very interactive dashboard. Let me see whether I can open a simple one and show you quickly. So I publish into the Power BI site. Now, once it is published to the Power BI site, again, before publishing, I can use Hadoop environment or data coming from Hadoop environment to creating my dashboards too. I can simply connect with my Hadoop environment. I need to have access. So then I can connect. I have no idea about this, whether it is Hadoop or relational. All I know is IT department has given me a URL with a key. I use it. Then I'm seeing a table. You know that there are no table in Hadoop environment, but business user sees a table, get the data into the environment, create the dashboard, and then use it. Okay? Let me see. Right. So once it is published, it can be used by other business users. Plus, you can simply take your any smartphone and access it. All the functionalities will be worked without any issue. There are a couple of issues with Silverlight components, right? You know that mobile devices do not support Silverlight, right? It is being addressed. Most of things have been converted to HTML5. So even though you have created a very complex dashboard which contains bar chart, line chart, geographical map, heat maps, all those things can be simply opened even using your old smartphone. Okay, so that is one advantage. Second advantage is it supports your question using your own language or natural language, right? I had to use the word natural language. So let's say once it is published, it contains your data set, right? So if I'm going to access your model using Power BI, I can simply ask, what is the sales amount for this region on this date? I can simply ask that question, and then it generates a grid for me, or I can simply say show it by a bar chart, or show it on a map. I can simply say it, right? So those type of facilities you get from Microsoft Power BI. And if I quickly show you something like this, okay, this is Power BI. You can see when I click on these, see, things are getting refreshed automatically. Okay, this is not something that have been created by an IT pro, right? This will be definitely created by a business user. Okay, so if you have Power BI, simply you can create that type of dashboard and publish. Other users can consume it. That's how it goes, right? So, and when you create Power BI dashboards, as I said, business user can connect with Hadoop environment. Simply type in the storage URL, and then it will list out all the data available, get the data as he wants, combine with your business data, and then continue with the analysis, right? So that's how the environment works, right? That's the last set of my slides. Now, if you have any questions, we can discuss whatever the clarification you want. We can allocate about 5-10 minutes if you want. You have any questions, or are you really hungry? Any questions based on the things we discussed? No? Okay, right. If you have any questions, you have my email address, and I'll be publishing this too. Send me an email, or you can contact me using the mobile number too. I'll pass the mobile number too, right? So if you have any question, just pass the information for me, right? Okay, thank you very much for listening. I hope you learned something from it, and enjoy your lunch. Thank you.